Ooby-doo, it's everyone's favorite boomer and vintage lens enthusiast. Today we're going to look at the Nikon Zoom Nikkor 35 to 70 millimeters, constant aperture 1 to 3.5. It's on the Nikon Z6, which is an outstanding mirrorless camera. It's a little pricey, even used, but it takes really excellent pictures, has great dynamic range, all that good stuff. This is an excellent match on this camera. Excellent match. It's an AIS lens, but it's really not automatic. There's no electrical contacts between the lens and the camera, so it doesn't tell it anything. But in the menu, you could assign like an arbitrary focal length for the in-body stabilization, and I put 50 millimeters in. And then you just tell it what the maximum aperture is, and this way you know what lens you're using, sort of. Well, I went out and I went to a car show, and then I went to some sort of autumn festival in a town I always go to. And then I shot this thing mostly at f11, or a little bit at f8, but mostly f11. And I just varied the shutter speed because I was in manual mode. So I just dialed in the shutter speed, and I got outstanding, excellent results. Of course, you have to focus, and you do that by hitting this magnifying button here. And you can move the magnifier box around, but usually I keep it in the center because that's usually where my subject is. And what's interesting about this lens, even at f11, you can tell what the depth of field is. It'll snap into focus, and then if you go too far, it gets out of focus. If you go too near, it gets out of focus, but it has a range. A lot of lenses that aren't top-notch, they have like funky focusing where it's hard to tell where the exact focus is, even when you're stopped down. But this lens is really nice and sharp. This is 20 megapixel. I sort of cropped them a little bit on a lot of them, and then I was able to even crop them even more to zoom up on an area of interest. So this lens held up admirably, and I highly recommend it. And of course, it's all old school metal except for the rubber on the zoom ring and the focusing ring. It's actually engraved, which is amazing, huh? I mean, it's built like a tank. It weighs a ton. This camera weighs a ton to begin with, compared to most modern mirrorless cameras. And the adapter doesn't help either, but it takes excellent, outstanding pictures. This is an excellent combo. It's an excellent walking around lens because you get a 35 millimeter real wide angle to a moderate short telephoto of 70 millimeters. And since it stays at 3.5, you don't have to double think anything when you're changing apertures. That's all. That's really great. So I highly recommend this lens because of the build quality, the excellent optical quality, and it's outstanding. This is like the best 35 to 70 I've come across. There are some are close, like the Canon is close. Canon actually has two. They have one's a very lightweight short one, but that's a variable aperture. They have their 3.5. I think that goes to 28 maybe. I'll have to look into that. I have a Tokina 35 to 70, which is very close, except that the contrast is a little bit less, but otherwise it's an outstanding performer. This is sort of a little bit of a stovepipe, and it does weigh a lot because it's metal and it's got a lot of glass in there. But if you want to take excellent, outstanding pictures, you can't beat this. For 120 bucks, you go to that place in Smyrna, Georgia. I'm not going to say their name, but you know who it is. Just put the used camera gear, Smyrna, Georgia, and you'll get this company where I get all my stuff from. So I highly recommend it. But rather than, let's look at some pictures and you decide what you think. What's good about, this lens has a macro mode in 70 millimeters. You got to be in 70, it locks it. Then you could go into this range and you could get less than 1 foot focusing at 70 millimeters. And then you got to push the button, then you can do the rest of the range. So that's nice. That's really nice. That's an excellent feature. I've used it a couple of times and it really works. But it's an excellent lens. I got an excellent copy. The philosopher photographer highly recommends the Nikon Zoom Nikkor 35 to 70 millimeter 1 to 3.5 AIS. Go get one right now. Hurry up before they're all gone. Where I live, it's very urban and suburban, and there's no mass transit really. So you need a car, everyone needs a car. So everyone's sort of a car freak or a gearhead, some to more extremes than others. But and the great state of New Jersey in America has a long history of a love affair with the car. And, well, there's cars from 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years ago. So you could go to a car show and you could see like the golden age of American automotive transportation. And a lot of these cars have been restored and they're what you call cherry, which means they're in really excellent shape. Muscle cars, roadsters, race cars, everything you can imagine. And this auto show's only been around for like 2 years. I happened to stop by 2 years ago. I think it was the first one. I thought it was pretty cool. I missed the last one. But then I saw a sign for this one, so of course I went for it. And I'm glad I did because the amount of cars doubled and tripled. That's great. And there's just this great variety of the 50s is the peak of American automotive might, and then the 60s, 70s, and 80s where you start seeing a lot of imports, and you get to see all this stuff there. Now I got there around 11 o'clock or 11:30, I believe, something like that, and the sun was still slightly to the east, but nearing its zenith, it being like the end of September to beginning of October. And so if I want to take a certain side of the cars, they were sort of in the shade. So I opened up my F number like F5.6 just so I could get a decent shadow detail. And if a car is dark or black paint, you might have to adjust your exposure also. So a lot of the highlights sort of were overexposed. But the Z6 has such great dynamic range that I was able to recover it by adjusting the levels and stuff. I just had to do that. But the Nikon Zoom Nikkor 35 to 70 f3.5 is a great lens, and it was great for walking around and taking pictures of cars because I had a full frame mirrorless camera, and I was getting the benefit of a 35 millimeter, which is a wide angle lens without a doubt, and a 70 millimeter, which is like a very short telly, but it still will give you that compressed perspective like here. And it was really a great lens for having on a full frame mirrorless camera. And of course, it being sunny, I set the lens at f11, but some I went up to f8 and some I went up to 5.6. And I kept the ISO at 400 throughout, and I just varied the shutter speed. And I was using a pretty fast shutter speed, and that helped keep away the boomer jiggles, so the pictures remained sharp from unintentional camera movement. And I got Studebakers, Fords, Model Ts, just this whole amalgam of different cars. It was a very eclectic collection. And you got to see the various stages of design and applications of the change and advancement of technology. Now, I know some of the cars weren't exactly cherry. They had little rust spots through the paint, or the chrome was pitted, or maybe there was a scratch. And there are a lot of older people. I guess some of them, they were looking to offload them, sell them, and maybe get some money for them. And some of the guys were telling me, they spent a car that originally cost $5,000. They spent 20 grand on. That's just the way it is. It's sort of like an investment. Some of these cars I don't remember seeing anywhere else, but some of them I did see. Like I went to Dead Man's Curve, which was a month before in a different town, and I saw one or two cars from there here. And I saw one car I've seen in a couple of different car shows throughout the past couple of years. And it's interesting. Car shows, you have a 66% chance of it being rained out. I noticed that. And they just reschedule them. Say like they reschedule it like 3 weeks, a month later, and you get a nicer day. And this is beautiful. It was a beautiful day to be at a car show. People are all walking around, hanging out. Mostly old boomers like myself, but there are some young kids there. Middle-aged couples are bringing their young kids there to check it out because it was free. That's the cool thing about it. It was free. all the guys paid like a nominal fee to enter the car, and maybe they would get a trophy for the best of class. And there are cars are there. They're better. Their prize money is too. So it was half the parking lot was filled up with these classic cars, and it actually went around the back a little bit, which I never seen before, which is pretty cool. But this lens is a great lens. It's sharp, it's contrasty, the colors are neutral. It's just a great lens. Of course, what did I do? I used mostly 35 millimeters, and then I used 70 millimeters. But I did use like 45 or 50 on occasion just to tweak in, the composition. Now, the camera I'm using, the Z6, is a 3x2 native format. So I could have stuck it in 16:9 mode, but then I'd be wasting pixels, and this gives you a little bit leeway when you're doing your crop. You can move it left, right, down or up, to tweaking your crop. Because let's face it, I cropped it to fit the screen, which is 16:9, and I also did on occasion, I did a one-to-one crop of some area of interest, so you could really check out how fine the detail and the IQ of this lens is. It's just a fantastic lens. And I like to show it wasn't just related to just classic cars or limited to that. Everything was there. There's some foreign cars there. There's like the monster trucks, muscle cars, roadsters, things from the 30s to 40s, the 50s to 60s, 70s, even more modern stuff. I think this is called a Cougar. No, not Cougar, a Panther. It was a Panther, that's what it was. And that was a foreign car I never heard of. And that was neat. I like going places where you see different cars and stuff. And the fact it was free, this is a corner of that picture. Some guy's hairy legs. And that's how sharp this lens is. An excellent lens. But, it was free, and you walk in, and everyone was like chilling out. And I talked to people, Some people, they want to talk about their cars and how they got them and this, that, and other thing. And you get some insights into the car collector psyche. Me, I collect cameras, camera lenses, and cameras. It's a lot cheaper, And when you're in a car show, you don't have an expectation of privacy because it's like a festival or an exhibition. And it's not like I'm selling these pictures for money, and I've graduated from taking pictures of the cars to like doing a lot of detail stuff. What are these hood ornaments like? How do they mount the headlights? What are the wheels like? What's the juxtaposition of a cherry older car and some newer car that's being worked on? So that was the car show, and I went to Morristown, and they were having some sort of festival there. So me and my friend, we had to drive around the block, and we parked, a couple thousand feet away, and then we walked into the fair, and we have to walk by some churches and buildings. This is the beer line. My God, it was crowded. We got there like at 1:30 or something like that, or maybe 2 o'clock. Almost 2 o'clock. And it's interesting. Almost all these tents were, this is Morris County and the town of Morristown, and they all had something to do with the various levels of government. Like this is a hazardous waste truck, like a for hazmat emergency truck. It was there, and they were like the Morristown Municipal Parking, Morristown, all the different types of government they had. And then they had NGOs there, which were like that dealt with homeless people or mental illnesses. And then the rest was like food. There was only one artisan craftsperson there that I could see. Now it's interesting. Say they had like 100 booths. Well, let's say 45 of them were food related, and the lines for each one was like 30 people deep. So if you wanted to get something, you had to like wait no matter what you did. It looks like someone opened a hydrant down there. People are going to check it out. It's an interesting town. I'm usually there in the morning, and here, it's early afternoon, everything had a different look to it. The same buildings and everything. The lighting was different. And this lens is a great lens. And it's the same thing. I had the ISO at 400. I I stopped down to F11, maybe F8. I don't think I did F16 on anything. I did some close-ups like these flowers. I did a lot of long shots. I used 70 millimeter a lot. And, it was just a cool place to go, to hang out. I just wish there was more artisans and craftspeople there. So, and it turned out the church, all the people were at the church bazaar. And I highly recommend going there just to hang out if you're into a foodie.